Paratmanamekam jagadbijamadyam niriham nirakaram onkar vedyam yato jayate palyate yena vishvam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishvam Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. My pranams to revered Swami Shantatmananji Maharaj, to revered Swami Vishwatmanandaji Maharaj, and my namaskars and good wishes to all of you, dear devotees. So today we are having a very special congregation of devotees, a Sammelan of Bhaktas. When we think about a group which is dedicated to one cause, that group becomes a very special and distinct group. The group of the devotees, the group of the Bhaktas. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we come across a very important statement from Bhagavan Sri Krishna, where Krishna says, what do Bhaktas do when they come together? When Bhaktas, they come and congregate in one place, what do they do? Krishna says, Madchitta, Madgata Prana, Bodhayantas Parasparam, Kathayantas Chamam Nityam, Tushyanti Charamanti Cha. What does it mean? These Bhaktas, they think about me. They talk about me. They mutually enlighten each other about me, that supreme reality. And in doing so, they derive great joy, tushyanti and ramanti. They delight in it. So today's this congregation is actually a congregation meant for this purpose, to keep our mind focused on that supreme reality. Either you may say in a particular form or formless, whatever it is, whatever is suitable to one's mental inclination. But the point is, we are all seekers of truth. This is a gathering where we are seated here for the purpose of seeking what is true in life. So, for this, we have a role model before us, a living embodiment of what is truth, what is satyam, and that embodiment is Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Now about Sri Ramakrishna, now whole day we have in front of you all, and you shall be listening to talks on Sri Ramakrishna. About this personality, Swami Vivekananda had stated that Sri Ramakrishna is that searchlight in whose illumination we can understand the whole gamut of Hindu, Vaidika, Sanatana Dharma. Again, I repeat, it's a very important statement. Swamiji says, Sri Ramakrishna is that searchlight in whose illumination we understand the whole range of Hindu, Vaidika, Sanatana Dharma. Now, the question comes, what is the central teaching of Hindu Dharma? What is the central teaching? It has got only one thing to say. The crux of it, Hindu Dharma has to tell us only one thing, the true nature of the human being. What is the true nature of the human being? It says it is the Atman. This is the true nature of each one of us. And to experience this, to realize this is the very goal of human life. Atman. And then it says a beautiful statement which comes in the Upanishads. What is that? Brahman or Atman, which we are referring to as that supreme truth or reality. This is the only thing which is actually existing. That's why the Upanishad says, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jiva Brahmaiva Na Apara. This is a complete picturization of the ultimate reality. What is true? Brahman, this Atman alone is true. And then the world which we are experiencing and our idea about what it is, such a world is mithya. And what is the true nature of the jiva? It is nothing but Brahman, it is Atman. The world which we are seeing, it is also nothing but Brahman, Brahman alone. Brahman alone is existing. There is nothing existing separated and distinct from Brahman. This is what the Upanishads have to tell us. The idea that something is existing separated and distinct from Brahman is based upon ignorance. This is what it has to say. That's why in this Upanishads you come across a wonderful prayer. What is that prayer? Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Everywhere you will see there is a journey from one state to the other. The prayer is, O Lord, take me from that which is mithya to that which is satyam. Asatoma sadgamaya. Take me from darkness to light, and take me from mortality to immortality. So you can see there is a kind of a journey from one state, a state of bondage, to a state of liberation and immortality. Now the best living embodiment of this principle, where we find one personality in whom we find absolutely no trace of the mithya dimension in his life and character. That is Sri Ramakrishna. When we look at Sri Ramakrishna's portrait, or if you go to the Garbha, this Nath Mandir of this temple, and you stand in front of Sri Ramakrishna's image, we are seeing a particular form. But what does this form actually denote? What is actually it is standing for? What do we see in Sri Ramakrishna's life, character and personality? We should think about it. When we meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, what are those qualities which have to be imbibed by all of us? That is the point. So what do we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life? To put it in one single sentence, when we stand in front of Sri Ramakrishna's portrait or Sri Ramakrishna's image, what does he stand for? Intense love for that which is satyam, and equally intense dispassion and revulsion for that which is mithya. Is it not? This is what Sri Ramakrishna's life, his personality and his character actually teaches us. If you go into the details of different events that have taken place in Sri Ramakrishna's life, you can read it from this angle. Sri Ramakrishna stands for that which is Satyam. And that dispassion, perhaps in the history of humanity, we haven't seen this kind of dispassion and revulsion for that which is known as Mithya. Talking about Sri Ramakrishna, Ma says, I don't know about harmony of religions and all these things. But one thing I can say, Ma says about Sri Ramakrishna, has the world seen this kind of renunciation and dispassion? That is the burning message which comes from Sri Ramakrishna's life. As devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, we should remember, Sri Ramakrishna stands for the Tyaga. Again, going back to the Shastras, this attainment of immortality that we are talking about, how are we going to attain this immortality? What do you mean by attainment of immortality? We use different terms: attainment of immortality, God realization, self-realization. It all means only one thing. That is the true nature of the human being, which has to be realized. It has to be experienced. That is the one purpose of the human life. And this can become possible only if certain conditions are fulfilled. Today's subject is this longing for God. This longing for God is not just going to happen just like that. There are certain conditions which have to be fulfilled. Without that, this is not going to happen. Just imagine, can we make a man walking on the street suddenly long for God? Is it possible? Can you make your children suddenly long for God? Is it possible? You can't. We can't force this upon anybody. But when the soul becomes ready, owing to fulfilling certain basic conditions, then this becomes a reality. As I said, what do we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life? Extreme love for this Atman, Brahman, which is Satyam, and equally extreme revulsion and dispassion for the things of the world. Is it not? Is there anything else in Sri Ramakrishna? He stands for this phenomenon, turning away from one and moving towards the other. Sri Ramakrishna again and again tells us, the Vedanta says Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Sri Ramakrishna puts it in his simple Bengali language. He says, Bhagavan hi ekmatra vastu, baki sab avastu. That's all. It means the same thing. Ishvara, Bhagavan, when we use these terms, Ishvara, Bhagavan, it all refers to the Atman, nothing else. The true nature of the human being. That alone is the only vastu, something which is substantial. Everything else is avastu. It is insubstantial. There is no substance in it. So this turning away from that which is insubstantial towards that which is the real substance in this creation, that is the whole process of spiritual pursuit. So as I said before, Sri Ramakrishna, when we stand in front of Sri Ramakrishna's portrait, what does he stand for? Intense love for that which is Satyam, and equally intense dispassion and revulsion for that which is Mithya, that which is transient, that which is Anitya. Let us look into some of the instances from his life which will make this point very clear. What we have to learn from this Bhakta Sammelan. What is that thing which we are going to take back from this gathering today evening when you go? That spirit of renunciation, that spirit of detachment has to come into our lives. Without that, we haven't meditated on Sri Ramakrishna. When we meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, these are the two virtues with which we should get up from our meditation seat. A little increment in the spirit of detachment and a little more love for Atman. Then we have meditated properly on Sri Ramakrishna. It is not the question of just focusing the mind on a certain form. We are imbibing certain gunas, certain virtues. That is, as I said, when you get up from the meditation seat, you should be getting up with a slightly more spirit of tyaga and renunciation and slightly more love for that which is true. Otherwise, what is the point in meditating on Sri Ramakrishna? Because he stands for this phenomenon. Look at the spirit of Tyaga in his life. As I said before, Sri Ma says, has the world seen this kind of renunciation? What a wonderful observation is. Sri Ma says, I don't know about harmony of religions and all those things. You people talk so much about it. Sri Ramakrishna came for harmony of religions and all those things. Ma says, what he actually has come to is to show to the world the importance of Tyaga, renunciation. So we devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, we have to keep this point in mind, that Sri Ramakrishna stands for Satyam and Satyam alone. And what this Satyam is, it is throbbing inside our heart. It is a matter which we have to investigate into. Now look at his renunciation. Burning renunciation. We all know that Sri Ramakrishna, during his sadhana, what he did. We all are ordinary human beings, and we have great infatuation for this, what we are seeing through our senses. This is actually possessing us. We have a great infatuation, a moha, for everything that we are seeing. And the whole thing can be covered up in two words, which Sri Ramakrishna says, Kama and Kanchana. This mithya dimension can be simply, in a sweeping way, described as nothing but our mad infatuation for Kama and Kanchana. That greed and that lust. This is what is actually making us miserable in life. So what did Sri Ramakrishna show in his sadhana? What did he do? One day he took a handful of earth in his one palm, and he took a few coins in another palm, and then he was saying, Mati taka taka mati. Mati taka taka mati. This money is actually as worthless as this earth which I am holding in another hand. The whole world is mad for money, 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 money. This greed for wealth, unending greed for wealth. See, the infatuation for the mithya dimension. How Sri Ramakrishna is demonstrating that this is worthless. Just like a few grains of dust. Sri Ramakrishna, and this idea goes into Sri Ramakrishna's system to such an extent that he later on is seen to be unable to even touch any metal. It becomes this reflex action. Can you imagine? We may be thinking about the trifling nature of this world, but for him it was so natural that he would be unable to touch even a single coin. Lakshmi Narayan Marwadi comes and gives 10,000 rupees to Sri Ramakrishna, and we know what happened. Literally he fainted. And when he came back to senses, he says that I felt as if somebody is cutting my throat with a sword. You just can't stand this mithya dimension. So much rooted in Satyam, that which is Satyam. Somebody comes and gifts one shawl to Sri Ramakrishna, and that shawl is a very expensive shawl. It is said that it is 1,000 rupees shawl. Just imagine, in those days, 1,000 rupees is a huge amount. A shawl worth 1,000 rupees. And initially, Sri Ramakrishna takes it and puts it on his body just for a few minutes. Afterwards, he starts to think, what is this shawl made up of? See, this is what we have to learn. How we have to turn away from the mithya dimension. Without this turning away from the mithya dimension, this longing for Satyam is not going to come into our lives. It is impossible. We cannot make friendship on both the sides. You have to turn away. Sri Ramakrishna says, if you want to go towards the west, you have to leave the east. You cannot keep your feet on both the sides. If you want to go towards one direction, the other direction has to be given up. This you can see in Sri Ramakrishna's every single incident, which actually represents this great virtue of renunciation. So, what did he think? When the shawl was given to him, he thinks, what is this shawl made up of? It is made up of the hair of some animal, and it is very costly. Yes, it can give some heat and comfort to the body, But when I am putting this very expensive shawl, what will happen is, it will make me egoistic. I will think that I am superior to others. And this ego is that thing which will take me away from God. And anything which takes me away from the Atman, fire upon it. Immediately he takes that shawl, throws it on the ground, tramples it, literally tramples it, and he was going to set fire to it. Just imagine. He was literally about to set fire to that shawl. Somebody comes and stops him. See the kind of that response to something which, when he is dealing with the mithya dimension of the world, absolute renunciation, dispassion and revulsion for this transient dimension, and that dedication for Satyam and Satyam alone. What a burning demonstration. Then we come to the other aspect. Mathur Babu, one more thing which comes to my mind is Mathur Babu once donated a big plot. He wanted to donate one big plot of land to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna almost was about to beat him, it is said in the books. So this is the kind of response which we find in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Now then we come to his karma. This karma for which this entire world is so mad. What do we see in Sri Ramakrishna's life? Absolutely no trace of karma. After his marriage, Sri Sharda Devi, the young woman, perhaps just 19 or 20, when she first came to Dakshineshwar, both Sri Ramakrishna and Sharda Devi, they spent several months in the same room, absolutely untouched by any carnal desires. What an experiment it is, to show the world how slowly to learn to rise above this karma, which is the biggest enemy on the spiritual path. Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhava, Mahashano Mahapapma Vidhi Enamiha Vairinam. This is the biggest vairi. The biggest enemy of spiritual pursuit is this mad infatuation for lust. This lust and greed. Then we all know several such incidents are there in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Beautiful incidents. Mathur Babu and Rani Rashmani, seeing Sri Ramakrishna's strange behavior, always intoxicated in God consciousness, and his behavior used to be very unworldly, so worldly people would not understand. They would not be able to evaluate what exactly Sri Ramakrishna is doing. So they thought that perhaps this is owing to Sri Ramakrishna's unbroken brahmacharya. And thinking that, Rani Rashmani and Mathur Babu, they arranged for a woman of ill fame, a prostitute, to seduce Sri Ramakrishna and break his brahmacharya. Now what happens? 2-3 times this attempt was made. And every time that lady who was trying to do that, owing to Sri Ramakrishna's association, she got transformed. She got completely transformed, and she could realize, she felt as if she is the mother of Sri Ramakrishna. This is the power of Sri Ramakrishna's purity, that burning purity. Now, as I said before, what is that thing that we have to imbibe from Sri Ramakrishna? When we meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, these are the virtues which have to slowly and gradually increase. It is not going to happen all of a sudden. But every time when we are thinking about Sri Ramakrishna, when we are meditating upon Sri Ramakrishna, the thing that we have to focus upon is the increase in dispassion for the mithya dimension, and the increase, a slight increase in that longing for that which is satya. In this way, you can see any numbers of incidents in Sri Ramakrishna's life where we find this phenomenon burningly demonstrated. Now, the next question comes, how are we going to, now this is a demonstration. As I said in the beginning, this is not going to happen unless certain conditions are fulfilled. This longing for God is not it is not possible for us to just awaken this in anybody just like that. Unless the soul is ready, unless certain conditions are fulfilled, this is not going to happen. So how do we have longing for God? So this is the main topic of discussion in today's this session. It's a beautiful, very important topic. Longing for God. Longing for God means longing for our own true nature. Again, I remind this point. God is not sitting somewhere up in the heaven. This is not the Semitic idea of God. Vedas teach us about the Atman, the real nature of everybody. Every man, every woman is Atman. This is the only true identity which we have. Every idea, every other idea about ourselves is just an imagination. This is what Upanishads teach us. Simple. But to move towards this Atman awareness, certain conditions have to be fulfilled, without which this is not going to happen. So what are those conditions? If we have to develop this longing for God, see, we are all bhaktas. As I said, let us not make a big fuss about bhakti and jnana. These differentiations are always only on the surface. Whether bhakti marga or jnana marga, these are all different margas, and these compartmentalization, they are only on the surface. Essentially, it is the soul's search for reality. That's all. Essentially, it is nothing but the human souls, striving to understand and experience that which is real. That's all. So, what are these conditions which we have to fulfill? Number one. The first point is, we need to understand the trifling nature of this world. As long as we consider this world to be important and valuable, the mind is not going to go towards God or the Atman. It is impossible. The first thing that we need to understand is the trifling nature of this world, this dimension, and the different objects that we are confronting day in and day out. The trifling nature of it. That is first point. Second point is to understand that the only thing that is valuable in human life is God, is Atman. Atman alone is valuable. Why I am saying this? The psychology of the human mind is such that it will always move towards that thing which it considers to be valuable. It is natural for the mind to flow towards that which it considers to be valuable. If the mind is completely drowned in the idea that money is valuable, all physical pleasures are valuable, if this transient dimension, if it is considering this transient dimension to be extremely valuable, and at the same time, if it is aspiring to go towards the Atman, this is the contradiction. So first we need to understand the trifling, the transient, the ephemeral aspect of this world which we are experiencing. It is anitya. No matter what you hold on to, everything will go away one day or the other. It is happening every moment. Pratikshanam anyatha sabhav. Every moment, everything is changing. Nothing will remain in our hands. So this firm conviction about the trifling nature of the world which we are experiencing, this is the first condition. And the second is to understand the only thing which is valuable, that is God and God alone. Atman and Atman alone. This is what Sri Ramakrishna says, Bhagavan hi ekmatra vastu. If that is the only vastu, if our mind is drowned in this idea, automatically the mind begins to go in that direction. Because mind wants that which is vastu. Presently, it is misunderstanding. It is thinking this avastu to be the vastu. This is the problem. This world which is avastu, if the mind thinks that this is the only vastu, it will always stick to it. It won't turn. So if our minds have to be turned from avastu to vastu, first this clarity should come in our life. What is nitya and what is anitya? What is transient and what is permanent? When the mind is completely trained in this understanding, then you see, then the true longing will start. When we understand that everything on this side of our experience is fraught with misery, dukkham, anityam, asukham imam lokam, prapya bhajasvamam, Bhagavan Krishna says. This lokam, this jagat is anityam and it is asukham. Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya in the commentary, in the Ishavasya Upanishad commentary, he says, Iha sansare sukhasya gandha matramapi nasti. What a fantastic statement it is. Iha sansare, this samsara, with which we are so infatuated. Shankaracharya says, Iha sansare sukhasya gandha matramapi nasti. There is not one drop of sukham in the samsara. And yet, tadapina munchati asha pindam, tadapina munchati asha pindam. Our desires, our hopes never come to an end. So, to understand that this is absolutely trifling, and the only valuable thing is this Atman, the God residing in our hearts. When this happens, automatically our mind will begin to turn towards that which is real. This is what is known as Viveka. A beautiful thing. Without the awakening of Viveka, spiritual life doesn't even start. For a aviveki, one who doesn't have this distinction about what is trifling and what is truly valuable, the spiritual life doesn't even start. Just imagine a aviveki who considers this world alone to be everything. Where is the question of longing for God? Is it possible? Somebody who is drowned in all kinds of worldly things, where is the question of longing for God? It's impossible. So the first condition that needs to be focused upon, which we need to strive to awaken in us, is the awakening of Viveka. When Viveka comes, automatically Vairagya. Vairagya for the Mithya dimension and Anuraga for Atman comes. With the dawn of Viveka, the Vairagya for Jagat and Anuraga, love for God, comes. It becomes natural. This is the way how we have to strive to move towards that which is real. Now, again the question may come, how are we going to awaken this Viveka? Is it so easy? So again, Shankaracharya says, and this Sri Ramakrishna, repeatedly he mentions this point. How is this Viveka going to dawn in us? Shankaracharya says, the best way to awaken the spirit of nisangatvam, or detachment to the world, or revulsion for the world, is what? Satsang, what we are doing now here. Shankaracharya says, Satsangatve, nisangatvam, nisangatve, nirmohatvam, nirmohatve, nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve, jivan mukti. On the one hand is jivan mukti, but the journey towards jivan mukti, our journey towards this God realization starts from satsang. What we are doing here. Merely reading of the books won't serve the purpose. It is good for the beginning. But what really is more important, to be in the physical company with those people who are leading a life of Vairagya for the world and Anuraga for God. When you come and meet these people, when you are in the company of such people who are practicing this, turning away from one and moving towards the other, those who are practicing that, the very company is contagious. To be in the company of such people who are doing this, that company is literally contagious. It will infect you with this great virtue of dispassion for the world and love for God. How true it is. Satsang, Sri Ramakrishna repeatedly says, the way to awaken this devotion is sing the glories of the God and sadhu sangha. Again and again he would say this point. Now one more point I should just say, and I should wind up my talk, it's already time is up. So in this way, what do we find in Sri Ramakrishna? Just to summarize the whole thing. Sri Ramakrishna stands for this tremendous phenomenon of turning away from the Mithya dimension and moving towards that which is Satya. This should be very clear in the human mind. What is Nitya and what is Anitya? If the mind is trained in this, automatically the mind will begin to move away from that which is Anitya and that which is Nitya. One instance. Suppose God comes and tells all of you that you are going to die today evening at 5 o'clock. Today evening, 5 o'clock, you are going to breathe your last breath. Suppose if God comes and tells you, just tell me what will be your priorities in life. Will you be worrying about your share market prices? Will you be worrying about this and that, marriage, this and that? Today evening at 5 o'clock, you are going to breathe your last breath. What are going to be your priorities? Everything will change. Actually, we are living here as if we are never going to die. This is the problem. Death is going to come any moment. Death is just like our shadow. It is standing behind each one of us. Grihitva iva kesheshu mrityuna dharmamacharit. Shastra says, Mrityu is holding us by our hair. This is the description. We don't even know this. Any time the life can come to an end. Therefore, what? Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. What a beautiful exhortation it is. Shankaracharya says, Samprapte sannihite marane nahi nahi rakshati dunkrankarane. All these exercises which we are doing, which we are busy with, this is not going to save you, my child. Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam means what? Seek the truth. Seek the truth. Try to experience it before the end comes. And a beautiful example of this is, we all know this wonderful story of Parikshit in Bhagavatam. What happens to Parikshit? Parikshit comes to know, Parikshit is a big king. He comes to know that he has got only 7 more days. This king, now his priorities has changed. If you come to know that you are going to die within 7 days, what is going to happen? This is what is going to happen. So what did he seek? Now he knew that there is very less time left with him. So now he wanted to seek the reality. What happens? He goes to Shukadev, and from the mouth of Shukadev, he listens to that wonderful discourse on the Leela of divine in a certain form. This is what is Leela Chintanam, what we are doing here. Leela Chintanam or Atma Chintanam, when that is done, Parikshit, in and through that, he crosses the ocean of the samsara. So we should understand, to wind up the whole talk, I want to say, when we meditate on Sri Ramakrishna, we should remember that Sri Ramakrishna stands for this wonderful phenomenon of extreme revulsion for that which is mithya dimension and equally intense love, intense longing for that which is satyam. This is the virtue which we all have to cultivate when we get up from the meditation on Sri Ramakrishna. These are the 2 qualities with which we should be getting up. Thank you so much.